Well, 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 well. I was not expecting to do this live stream this evening, ladies and gentlemen, and let me just start off by quickly saying there is no guarantees in this game. There is no absolutes in this game. I remember a few years ago I was doing live streams and I was doing videos saying that Eddie Howe was about to become Celtic manager, and the journalists and the insiders were telling us that he was very, very close. And don't get me wrong, they were right. Eddie Howe was very close to being Celtic manager. But something happened and things changed very, very quickly. Eddie Howe didn't become Celtic manager, and we ended up going down this whirlwind of a situation where we got Ange Postecoglou. What I'm trying to say is, what looked to be a guarantee in Eddie Howe ended up to be the biggest curveball in probably Celtic Football Club's modern history. So there is no absolutes in this game. There is no certainties in this game. But what there is there's very likelies. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as I talk to you at 10 past 6 on the 14th of November 2025, it is looking increasingly likely. If I just get it up on screen here now. That's not the right screen. I'm having an absolute nightmare here. I'm too nervous. It is looking increasingly likely that Wilfried Nancy, I'm going to have to start getting used to calling him by his full and proper name, as he is the boss. He's the guy that's going to be leading us forward, and he's the guy I'm going to get behind. It's looking incredibly likely that Wilfried Nancy of Columbus Crew in the MLS is about to become Celtic manager very, very quickly. It's been reported by multiple outlets tonight, and of course by the very reliable Stephen McGowan, who has wrote an article on the timeline that has emerged in regard to Wilfried Nancy becoming Celtic manager. It looks like this is it now. At the top of the article, you can see that he is now first choice. I'll zoom in just for the avoidance of any doubt and for anybody who might be hard of seeing. Wilfried Nancy is now Celtic's first choice to become the club's new manager, and he's been recommended by Paul Tisdale. So it looks as though Paul Tisdale is the one who has had the biggest influence and the biggest say in the appointment of Wilfried Nancy, or the suggestion of Wilfried Nancy, and by all accounts from everything that's being said tonight, it looks to be the case. Because, if you allow me to go and switch for a moment, because as of the last, I don't even think the link's working properly. It's not, it's this recent. This was put up at 2 minutes past 6, so as of 10 minutes ago, if I just bring it back over for a moment, as of 10 minutes ago, Sky Sports are now reporting that Wilfried Nancy has been given permission to speak to Celtic. If a deal is agreed, Celtic will approach Columbus Crew to discuss compensation, and Martin O'Neill is in talks to extend his stay at Celtic if Celtic don't appoint a new manager before next weekend. So I think, to dumb it down and to make it very, very clear, Nancy is now first choice. Nancy will now meet with the Celtic hierarchy to discuss a contract. Celtic will then meet with Columbus Crew to buy out that contract, which might last up until as late as 2027 or 2028. And if that is all done by the game next weekend, Wilfried Nancy has a real good chance of being in the dugout for that game. If things stall, if things stagnate, and if things take a little bit longer than expected in negotiation with both Wilfried Nancy, with Columbus Crew, and as we know with Celtic Football Club, when they like to lowball and cheat people out, we might see Martin O'Neill for at least one more game. I think that is a very, very interesting one, because I don't think there's a clear, unless they tie it up by Monday, I don't think there's a clear answer to who will be in the dugout by Sunday. I don't think there's a clear answer to that. But I think it's looking incredibly likely. I think it's looking incredibly dead on at this point that Wilfried Nancy is the next Celtic manager. And I, for one, am pretty bloody excited about that. I am. I'm not going to hide it. Am I nervous? Of course I am. Do I have reservations? Of course I do. I don't think any Celtic fan can sit with their chest out and tell you that this is going to be a 100% successful appointment. This is a huge risk. One that comes with a much bigger risk than some of the other safer appointments. But I think the one thing that Celtic fans need to get into their head is, a lot of the other appointments weren't going to be easy. For as much as journalists might have led on, for as much as insiders might have led on, I mean, it's came out in the past 24 hours that Kjetil Knutsen, for example, in Bodo Glimt, is quite happy to stay there and is actually favouring a stay in Norway. So everybody who had their hat set on him, I've been saying it for the last 3 weeks since Rodgers left the club, it was it was always very unlikely for me that he would be the next Celtic manager. He's turned down other jobs, it doesn't look as though he wants to leave there, and certainly don't think he would leave to come to Celtic in this current predicament. The likes of Kieran McKenna, who I really did think we could push for, and I think we probably could have done more. I don't know what they've done. It was always going to be difficult as well with the huge compensation fee, the fact that he could be back in the Premier League very, very soon. He'll attract jobs from down south by the dozen, I'd imagine, over the next few years. He doesn't probably need to rush to Celtic. And then all the other ones, Ange Postecoglou, who hasn't even been on the whim. He had one of his mates come out and say that he's not in a rush to get back into management. Celtic's situation right now wasn't ideal. But the fact of the matter is, there is somebody high up at the club that has put this guy forward for a reason. Do I trust him? No, I don't, because they've not done enough recruitment-wise, boardroom level-wise, or anything to suggest that I should trust anybody within the club to make these big decisions and to get them right. But what I have done is I've read enough about Wilfried Nancy. I've looked into enough about his football teams. I've seen that he's managed to win in a very short time that he's been in management. And I think to myself, this is very exciting. He's a guy who knows how to win. He's a guy that's allegedly a very good coach by all accounts from everything I've read. Even one of our own players, Alistair Johnston, has publicly praised Wilfried Nancy in the past. There is nothing to me that suggests that Wilfried Nancy is a bad coach. And I am excited. And if you've been watching me for the last few weeks on this channel, you'll have heard me talk about that excitement. I can't help but reiterate, it's not the perfect appointment. It's not the appointment that I think that everybody was hoping for when Brendan Rodgers initially left the club back on Monday, the whatever of November the date was. It's definitely not. It's not the appointment that I think anybody had in mind straight away. But I will get behind any man who leads Celtic into battle. As I will back any leader of the club, any manager, whether I wanted them or not, because I'm a Celtic supporter at the end of the day, and if they've been trusted to be put in a position as manager, I'm going to get behind them. And that doesn't change for Wilfried Nancy, and I'm very excited. I have a good feeling. I do. And listen, I put up a tweet about this earlier. I think I've been one of the more optimistic people when it comes to the name of Wilfried Nancy, and when his name's been mentioned, I've certainly been one of the more optimistic people about it. But like, I since he was first mentioned, I've just felt like, do you know what? Bugger it. Why not? Let's do something different. Let's do something exciting. I'd rather him than one of these names that formerly used to play for the club or has links with the club. I like this. It's something fresh. It's something unique. And I hate to feel like I'm sounding like a broken record, because I feel like I've said this a million times. By the way, stop saying nonsense. You're not French. It just sounds ridiculous. It's the guy's name. It's not that hard to say somebody's name the way it's meant to be said. And I'll give him the respect. If I went anywhere else in the world, I'd like people to say my name the way they could if they can bother. So I'm going to give him that respect. His name is Wilfried Nancy. It's not hard. Just because it's an A doesn't mean it's not pronounced like the letter is meant to be. I will give him the respect of calling him by his name. I know I'm not French, but I'm also no stupid. I'm also no thick. I can talk, I can speak, I can adapt to other languages when I need to. So I'm going to call him Wilfried Nancy. Fuck's sake, I'm meant to be professional. I didn't go to uni to get a fucking degree in journalism to call him by the wrong name, for goodness sake. I've lost my train of thought here. I've lost my train of thought where I was going with this. But no, I'm excited. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Look, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I feel like in these times you end up doing that because you make so many videos, you make so many different, you do different live streams and different podcasts where you're talking to different people, and you just need to bring up the same points all the time because things are moving very, very quickly, and you end up repeating yourself on quite a frequent basis. But, when Ange Postecoglou came in, there was such a nervousness because we didn't know who the guy was. He had this extravagant name. He was, by all accounts, sort of exotic to many people. And that scared folk because it was like stepping into the unknown. And it worked out very, very well. Now, I can't help but reiterate the point. Wilfried Nancy, brother Wilfried, he is not another Ange Postecoglou. And by that, I mean Ange Postecoglou came in a completely different way. He was a former World Cup manager. He'd won trophies in different nations, Japan and Australia. He was much older and much more experienced. Wilfried Nancy, for example, is coming in with, only 5 or so years in the management game, with only one league title to his name, and without that continental experience that you would like to hope for. I mean, what Ange Postecoglou lacked in continental experience in managing the Champions League, he more than made up for by being a man who managed at a World Cup and had won the Asian Cup with the Australian national team. So they're nothing alike. They're absolutely nothing alike. But what you can do, and very easily, is you can draw parallels in the circumstances around it all. And the circumstances are very clear for people to see. We're walking into the unknown. We're delving into a market that we very rarely tap into. But these are the things you have to do in modern football to keep up. I would much rather this than laziness, than something boring. And if it works, great, fantastic. We look like geniuses the way we did with Ange Postecoglou. If it doesn't work, that's life. These things happen. The board are taking their calculated risk. We're not the ones responsible for choosing who leads the club as a manager or a head coach, depending what route they decide to go down. But we can get behind it. We can try and let it work, and if it doesn't, cool, we move on to the next one. And yeah, maybe we lose, maybe something goes tits up, but it's happened with much safer options in the past. I used the example on the podcast yesterday, and it's good to, by the way, Quinny, I'm glad you're in here, mate, because I wanted to give your video a shout out, and I'm going to do that as the stream goes on. Everybody say hello to Quinny in the chat, who did a fantastic video in the Celts Are Here channel on Wilfried, by the way, so I would go and watch it. But I used the example yesterday on the podcast of Tony Mowbray. Right? Which was obviously nearly 50 or over 15 years ago now. It was summer of 2009 we appointed Tony Mowbray. And Tony Mowbray came in with English Premier League experience with West Bromwich Albion. He came in with experience of the Scottish Premiership and knowing the league because he'd managed Hibs. And he came in with a Celtic link. He ticked all 3 boxes. He has the Celtic link, has the big league experience down south, and has, other job experience. Also has experience up in Scotland. How did things go with Tony Mowbray? They went really bloody badly. And what my point is, because I hate going back 16 years to try and make a point. But what my point is that anybody can fail in the role of Celtic manager. It doesn't matter how well versed you are or how early you are into your managerial career, anybody can fail. A good coach is a good coach, and I really, truly, bloody believe that Wilfried Nancy is a good coach because he wouldn't have people talking about him, and he wouldn't be on the Celtic shortlist if he wasn't a good coach. We can say what we like about this board. We can say what we like about Paul Tisdale. They're terrible. They've not got many things to their name to give them credibility. But one thing they've always done is they've went into managerial searches, bar one that I can remember very recently, in the last decade, and they've got things done right. They went out, they got Rodgers. They went out, they tried to get Eddie Howe, and instead, they got Ange. They went back out and got Brendan Rodgers. They get these decisions right, so if they deserve any credit, it's that. You can put all of that aside. I think what matters more than anything is that we back the guy. We back him, and we back him hard. Because what's the point not back? See, if you're... once again, I'll revert to the podcast, which went up this morning. It feels like we've got into a real habit of uploading podcasts on days where something significant happens. But if you're childish enough to let this properly affect you to the extent where you aren't going to back a manager, then take a fucking look at yourself. What are you, a child? It's like the way that I worded it in the podcast, it's no Christmas. It's not like you can take it back. It's no, is that not the toy you wanted? Or, it's alright, we'll take it back to customer services and we'll get it changed. Doesn't work like that. He's the manager now. And I think 90%, 95% of Celtic fans will turn around and back the guy. And I think a good portion of them will be ones that never had him anywhere near their top choices. But they're responsible enough, they're old enough, they're reasonable enough to go, yes, I'll back him. But there is that minority of people who are just children, who are just pathetic. And they'll say, I'm not backing him. I'm not backing him. Came for the MLS and I'm not backing him. It's a Celtic manager now, and if you don't like it, lump it, because it's not going to change. Unless you've got the millions sitting there to go and offer him a compensation fee to step away. That's going to be the case for the time being. So it looks as though we are edging ever closer. We're going to be live for the next wee while. I want to get a lot of your points, a lot of your questions. I agree with you, Mackenzie. People are allowed to have opinions. Of course they are. And you're allowed to, and I said I have reservations. Of course I do. I'm nervous. But I have reservations. I could go through every candidate and I could give you my reservations about them. Because guess what? No managerial candidate in the world is perfect. The ones who are managing teams like Real Madrid and Manchester City and Barcelona and big clubs. But even the likes, we want to be this modern, big, huge club, right? We want to be this modern, big, huge club. Look what Bayern Munich went out and done a couple of years ago. And I was very vocal about this. I thought it was a really, really stupid move. They went out and got Vincent Kompany, who had 2 years management experience with Burnley. Burnley Football Club. 2 years. And Bayern Munich went, do you know what? That's our guy. They've went out and got him. They very well could win the Champions League this year. They took a big risk. They took a massive risk. They gambled. And they acted in a way that tried to change the culture of the football club. And right now, Celtic from top to bottom need a change of the culture at the football club. I think the points about, he's only been managing 2 jobs in 5 years or whatever. I find it pretty irrelevant in my own viewpoints. From my viewpoint, I just find it irrelevant. Every manager has to start somewhere, and some people get to the top quicker. Pep Guardiola was given the Barcelona job after managing the B team for about a year. He done coaching gigs, of course, but he was given the Barcelona job after a year at managing the B team. He's went on to become one of the top 5 greatest managers ever to live. Because they took a gamble. Because they went out and they gave it to somebody who was notably a good coach. Good coaches get places quickly. And that's why Wilfried Nancy will be on the shortlist at Celtic, because he's clearly a good coach. I think this is a real act of modernisation. I think it's a real act of bravery. I think it's something to be excited about. And naturally, you don't need to share that excitement. You're allowed to have your opinions. But that's the case. And I think there's a lot of snobbery. And this is, I'll add in this point here. We're getting up, the viewers are coming up in the chat just now. I think that one of the things that pisses me off the most, and if this applies to you, yeah, it pisses me off. What's with the snobbery about the MLS? Only yesterday, right? Only yesterday, I watched Paul John Dykes go on Sky Sports, tear down Jamie O'Hara something rotten, because he was turning his nose up at the Scottish Premiership and calling us the worst league in Europe and this, that and the next thing, that Stockport County could come in and win the Scottish Prem. We're all very quick to jump to the defence. We're all very quick to stand up for Scottish football and say, we're not that bad, we're not that bad, when somebody starts slagging off our game. But then, when it comes to us looking at other leagues and looking at other countries, and you'd thought we would have learned with Japan, we do the exact same thing. We are just as bad as the English, and some of you are scared to admit it. We are just as bad. I'll tell you one thing about the MLS, not as a frequent watcher. I watch the Cup Final every year, and that's about it. I watched last year's Cup Final between New York Red Bulls and LA Galaxy. It was a cracking watch. It's not a perfect league. There's still a long, long way for it to go. But it's got a lot better in this past decade. So much so that it's on the Opta stats quite high. So much so that they are producing talent. In fact, our very, very valued right back was signed from an MLS side. You know, we are just as bad as the English when it comes to turning our nose up at places. Who are we to suggest, and who are we to put down the MLS? You know, Celtic and Rangers would get great competition off the teams at the top end of that league. The teams that are fighting for the championship this year. Probably from Wilfried Nancy's Columbus Crew side. Of course that Celtic are bigger than everybody in there and all the rest. Of course we are. But in terms of quality, that league's came a long way. And it's guys like Wilfried Nancy who have brought the quality a long way. He's came over from France. You know, he's not some American Diddy or anything like that. No, he's came over from the continent as an ex-pro, as a coach, and he's went over and he's helped the league get better. He's helped teams get better, just like many coaches that have went over there. And I think it's incredibly lazy for us to turn around and go, the MLS is shite, the MLS is this or that, when we're the ones that get so offended when the English say the same thing about our leagues. It pisses me off something rotten. It pisses me off rotten. I think it's a market that's growing. It's a market that we should be tapping into more and more. The reason that we got Alistair Johnston from there is because we were ahead of the curve and we spotted him. You know? That's going to happen more and more and more over this next decade. There's going to be gems that are unearthed in that. I mean, it's happening with bigger clubs, you know. Bigger clubs across the continent are signing players from America, from the MLS, because they are naturally getting better and trying to keep up with the footballing curve. So, yeah, listen, there is risks, there is negatives, there is positives, but we've got to get behind them. We're going to have a quick look through the Daily Records article, which came out earlier this afternoon. In their words, he is on the brink of becoming the Celtic manager, as he's now become Dermot Desmond's top target. Now, I know a lot of people will naturally jump to the cheap option thing, and I get that. I think that's one of the things that I do agree with. I think that Dermot Desmond is probably licking his lips, saying that his compensation package is lower than the likes it would be for a Kieran McKenna. It's lower for the likes of maybe some other top options that Celtic could consider. But I also think that there is enough to make you believe that he's still on a big compensation package, and he just stands out as a good option. Thank you, Elijah, for your loyalty to the 118 club. Celtic are now apparently in those advanced talks to land Wilfried Nancy as boss, and he's now Dermot Desmond's number one target. Discussions with club chiefs are planned for the weekend with a view to nailing down a deal. Celtic have remained in touch with several candidates, but Nancy has been top of the wish list from day one, apparently, with Dermot Desmond originally reaching out to him last month in the wake of Brendan Rodgers' shock disaster. Desmond agreed to wait until Crewe's MLS campaign was over, but ramped up the chase on the back of their playoff exit last weekend. So there you go. Record Sport now understands that Nancy has been sold on the move, and Celtic's officials are hoping that he can be on board for the game against St Mirren next weekend. So there has been mixed messages about his compensation package and his contract. I don't think anybody has the exact details of that. The Record are suggesting that it's until the end of 2026, and it's a compensation package between £1 and £2 million. I think that's all very speculative, if anything. There is no guarantees in that, but it will be something around that sort of region. It's not going to be far off the mark, put it that way. But yeah, there you go. Apparently Dermot Desmond and Celtic higher ups have been looking at him since day dot, since the minute that Rodgers left the club, and it has just been a case of waiting till Columbus Crew were knocked out of the MLS playoffs, which of course happened last week to the hands of FC Cincinnati. So yeah, this is the situation that we find ourselves in. It's something exciting, I think. Look, listen, nobody's got to kill the excitement for me. Look, and I get that. Just think you're jumping on excited the wagon too soon without seeing what he can do. No, I get that. 100%. Listen, I don't disagree with you, Connor. I don't. Maybe I am too quick to get excited, but I also don't see the point in being like negative or pessimistic about it. Like I can't help it. I'm a glass half full guy. I am about most things in life, let alone the Celtic manager. Like, I'm going to try and go into things optimistically, and that's just my personality. So I think you're allowed to go into things with caution, with pessimism, but just at least back the guy. The only problem that I have is with people not backing him. The ones that will actively say, no, he's not getting my support. Because I think that's just childish. But I think that you're allowed to be overly excited. I think you're allowed to be overly concerned as well. Just as long as you give him your backing. Just as long as you give him a chance and give him an opportunity, because he deserves an opportunity as much as many others. So yeah, that is it for tonight in terms of the news. We're going to, switch to you guys. We're going to get your comments, your thoughts, and if anything happens, then hopefully we'll react to it live on air as we stay live for the next maybe kind of 20 minutes, half hour or so. So make sure to load your points and questions in. Mackenzie, thank you for 11 months as a channel member. Really hate our fan base sometimes, but really excited about a fresh formation, and I will back him till he's gone. But he needs the right players. Absolutely. Alistair, member for 14 months. Thank you. Saying Columbus Crew played Villa off the park in the summer on YouTube. Give the guy a chance. Alistair, I know, is an Aston Villa supporter, so that goes a long way. I mean, obviously friendlies and such are a different story, but it's obviously an indication of what to expect. And then Connor, thank you for the £2, mate, donating, saying I'm all in with him. I'm all in with him as well. I'm all in any Celtic manager. Absolutely. I don't think I'm overly all in, because I'm just all in. I want the Celtic manager to do well. So I'm just all in with whoever it is, and it happens to be Wilfried Nancy by the looks of things. There also was, just before I come to the chat very quickly, there also was an article written by the Daily Mail of all places this afternoon. Graham Spears wrote an article which came out before all of the news started dropping. That Wilfried Nancy was in line to become Celtic manager, and that he was edging ever closer to becoming Celtic manager. About Martin O'Neill holding crunch talks with Dermot Desmond today over his Celtic future. So I think that, realistically speaking, Martin O'Neill will only be here for a max of maybe 1 or 2 more games. It's going to be a weird one to operate. I think if they can get the deal done by the weekend, Nancy will be here for the game against St Mirren. If they can't get the deal done for the weekend, then you then start to kind of enter this kind of weird territory where you've got, like, okay, St Mirren at the weekend, O'Neill's in charge for that, let's just say, for example, right? So he's in charge for that. And then you've got a midweek European game. Surely you don't baptise Wilfried Nancy with a really tough visit to the Coupe. Surely you keep maybe O'Neill in charge for that. But then after that, you've got a trip to Easter Road. So you start to enter a very, very weird territory. And, you obviously want the manager to get time to impose his tactics and his philosophy on the players. But it's not like Ange, when Ange had a pre-season in the summer. We're going to have to be patient with this, especially because he does bring something so different. I mean, if he chooses from the start, by the way, and this is, I mean, it might take him time. He might just go with 4 at the back for the time being. If he chooses to bring in his own tactics straight away, we're going to see a massive change-up against St Mirren. And that will happen so quickly. So that's a conversation for when the time comes. That's a conversation when he's through the door. I don't think it's worth getting bogged down by all of that just now and to get too drawn into it, because ultimately he isn't even here yet, and it all depends on when he gets here. Jack, thank you for being a member. Damo, by the way, all is well. I'm glad you're concerned. I've seen your messages of concern in the chat, and don't worry, son. I'm fine. Just getting my points across. Thank you, Jack, for your membership loyalty. We'll get to the chat in a moment. I'm very excited about this, to be honest. Looking at some players we could sign, I think Diego Rossi, who plays for Nancy just now, would be a very good signing. Listen, there's a whole scouting network at Celtic that will be looking in that league, and Nancy will come in and then obviously add his own opinions to all of that. There's great players all over the world, let alone just in the MLS. Like we raided the J-League market a few years back, and it provided us with some of the best players that we've had in the last decade. Can we do that in other countries? Absolutely. And I think that there's only positives to bring with somebody that expands your worldwide geographical footballing knowledge and Wilfried Nancy. So I'm looking forward to that. Footballing terms, everybody's asking about the football. Look, apparently, this is one thing. I keep saying I'm going to get to the chat. Trust me, this is my last point before we get to the chat. I'm excited to see something different, and different formations bring different anxieties for people. So he naturally kind of goes with a sort of 3-4-2-1, I believe. Now, this is where I'll point you in the direction of Quinny. Go and watch Quinny's video on the Celts Are Here channel after this stream. It's a cracking video. It's about half an hour long, and it really dives into a lot about him and his career so far and his current tactical outlook on things. It's a great video, and I think Quinny is in the chat, or at least he was in the chat. He's a top guy, very well versed when it comes to his tactical knowledge, a lot more than me. Trust me, what my purpose here on YouTube is to give shite opinions on things. Quinny's more down with the tactical knowledge and the tactical things, like that's his niche, you could say. So I would trust him with that, and if he's still here, give him a wee thumbs up. But one thing that I think, there's one guy who I'm going to talk about very quickly that I think could actually benefit out of this more than any other player. And it's the guy who I think is really, really close to looking finished. People might hate me saying that. Kieran Tierney. I think he could benefit massively from being put over to a left-sided centre-half and a back three. He does not look like he can handle it over on that left-hand side anymore, on the flanks, I mean. He doesn't. Let's just be honest about things. He's looked feeble, he's looked weak, he's looked leggy all season. And he can't do that for the rest of his career. He can't do it for another 2 seasons, I don't think, let alone the rest of his career. I think that Tierney could benefit massively from this. This could be the biggest blessing in disguise that Kieran Tierney was ever asking for. We've seen him obviously play in that same sort of role for the Scottish national setup with Stevie Clark over the years. And he's done very well at it when fit. So, when fit at Celtic, I think that could change up his career. Now, realistically, what you're kind of looking at is a back three of centre-halves with Tierney in the left, and then maybe, say, Tenecti as a sort of winger/wing back over on the far left-hand side of the pitch. And that, I think, is very interesting. And that's what I mean. I'm all up for seeing something different. I'm all up for it. I'm all bloody in on the guy. I'm all in on the guy. Right, let's go into the chat then. Let's go into the chat. Shall we, and have a look at things, because I'm sure you've got a lot of things to say. Quinny, you're a top guy, don't worry. It's not kind enough, I would say, not kind enough. I'm sure once everything's settled and when he's here, maybe we can get a wee collab or something going to get your initial sort of impressions of him and how things are going. I was listening to your video the other day, and it was interesting to see that you've been on that bandwagon since the minute Rodgers left, and I had him in your kind of 5 options, because I never heard of him. And it's always great to know when people have a wee bit of insight. Right, let's go, shall we? Jackie, thank you for the channel membership loyalty. I think it's an exciting time, but we'll need patience. Absolutely. I think more than anything, it will need patience. He's been brought in at a really weird time because you're chasing Hearts at the top of the table, and ultimately you need to chase them and overtake them very quickly. And ultimately, he should still be able to do that no matter what tactic he deploys. Like, this is a league where Celtic are a far stretch better than any side in terms of squad quality and money spent, wages spent. So we should be able to do that. It's just about how quickly and how nice we make it look. You know, how quickly we do it, how nice we make it look at. So we'll wait and see. Win rates don't mean everything, says Mackenzie. Yeah, so I see a lot of people. I want to do a little bit of. I want to look at something here. So everybody's going on about how apparently has like a 51% win rate, right? And just, this isn't me saying that I have a point to make here. I just want to do Ange Postecoglou, career total win percentage, 52%. 73% at Celtic, so that brings it up quite a bit. In fact, Ange Postecoglou at South Melbourne, 53%. Ange Postecoglou at Brisbane Roar, 50%. Ange Postecoglou at Melbourne Victory, 46%. Ange Postecoglou at Australia, 44%. Ange Postecoglou at Yokohama F. Marinos, the job he had directly before coming to Celtic, 49%. Let's just go and have a look at Brendan Rodgers, shall we? Let's go and have a look at Brendan Rodgers. 51%. By the way, whoever said it's good, it is pretty decent. Brendan Rodgers, Watford, 41%. Reading, 26%. Swansea, 44%. Liverpool, 50%. Leicester City, 45%. Let's go have a look at Gordon Strachan, shall we? Gordon Strachan, win percentages. If we can get down to, where's his managerial record? Gordon Strachan, Coventry City, 32%. Southampton, 35%. Middlesbrough, 28%. Scotland, 47%. Any other managers you want me to go through? Anybody? By the way, Wilfried Nancy had a higher percentage than any of those, by the way. Any of those individual jobs. Just saying. I'm not trying to make it sound like he's the almighty or anything like that here. I'm just saying that win percentage is such a stupid thing to go off, considering it's very hard to win football games. If you win more than half of your games as a manager, that's pretty good. Celtic's an exception. Most managers come to Celtic have win percentages in the 70 and 80%, because it's Celtic. And we're meant to win every week. You know? So that's that. Daniel, what annoys me, Ryan, is the same folk who are begging for Trusty to get a game are the same people who turn their noses up at the MLS in America as a whole. So I was saying about I used the point of Alistair Johnson. I think you've got to be consistent, and that's listen. I might talk some shite, and I know I do, and some people might not agree with all of my opinions. I'd like to think that I've somehow got to nearly 54,000 subscribers for a reason, by the way. But not everybody agrees with me. But I think I've always prided myself in at least being consistent. I've never once came on here. Maybe when I was 16 I might have done it. I've never came on here and slagged off the MLS. Because we signed great players from the MLS, and I'm hoping we're about to go and get a great manager from the MLS. Somebody's asking me to do the Martin O'Neill win percentages. Should I? Let's go and see. Martin... I'm a wee bit away from the keyboard, so give me a moment. For goodness sake. Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill win percentages. Wycombe Wanderers, 53%. Norwich, 45%. Leicester, 38%. Aston Villa, 42%. Sunderland, 31%. Republic of Ireland, 34%. Nottingham Forest, 42%. There you go. What does win percentages mean? When I think Nancy has just cleared every single one of those that I've shouted out about four great Celtic managers in the last 25 years. Doesn't mean anything. Win percentages mean fuck all. Absolutely bugger all. Let's keep going with the chat. Jake, I'm just picking out random comments. I'll get behind any Celtic manager until the trust is lost. They are in a managerial role linked to Celtic for a reason. And to be honest, the MLS is better than the SPFL. Wow, big call from Jake saying that the MLS is better than the Scottish Premiership. Look, listen, that's not for me to say. I don't watch the MLS every week. I don't. So I'm not going to say that one's better than the other. But what I will say is I know there has been a notable improvement. This isn't the MLS of 20 years ago when they were fucking doing, or 30 years ago when their penalty shootouts was running for the halfway line and try hitting the goal. It's not the comical early days David Beckham MLS when he asked to leave instantly because it was a joke of a league. It's a serious. In fact, I think only last night or something they announced that they're changing up to the August to May system rather than the system they run just now through, I think it's February through December, February through November, March through November even. They're changing up. They're doing all the right things. They've got the right people making decisions now. It's not the way it used to be. It's not this comical league that it was maybe even still 15 years ago. It's very, very different now, but people are like stick their head in the sand and they pretend to say things change. Paul Martin, good to see you, Paul, one of my top guys in there. The miserable bastard CSC will be out in force over this appointment. I'm quite alright with this, to be honest. Cautiously optimistic. Not just because I had £50 on Brother Wilfried. You had it 71, you had 50 quid, you dirty bugger, Paul. Look, listen, I'm not going to jump to calling anybody miserable or to say people aren't allowed an opinion. As I've said before a million times, the only problem I have is if you don't back him. Like, back the guy. That's all. Like, if you're miserable about it, cool, whatever. But he's here. It looks as though he's here. He's a Celtic manager. And I don't think you should act childish about it. But I'm alright with this as well, Paul. 100%. And I'm glad that you share some of the optimism that I feel about it. Baldy Prick saying, isn't it obvious the MLS is better than the SPFL? Teams up here play haramball and can't fill stadiums. The league is tin pot. You said it, not me. Listen, I'm not going to say anything about my opinions of the Scottish Premiership at this moment in time. What I will, do you know what I will? Actually, I'm going to... The Scottish Premiership, right now, as it stands, is the worst it's been in a long time. Let's just be honest. It is. Celtic and Rangers are embarrassing themselves on a European stage. Teams can't get past European qualifiers, that, like, you know, the likes of Hibs and whatnot. I mean, we've seen Kilmarnock getting knocked out a few years ago by teams in Wales. I think the same happened to somebody. The Scottish Premiership is at a real weak point right now. Nobody's doing a grand job at representing it well. And listen, that's why I don't think we have the right to knock down other leagues. Quite frankly, that's not me saying that one's better than the other before people are choking to put words in my mouth. But once again, I think people love sticking their heads in the sand and pretending that we are almighty when we're not. As I said, we can get as bad as the English up here, and we don't like to admit it, but it's true. Let's see. Whereabouts? Where else are we going? 7th in the league. What ambition do we have? It's a very competitive league, and at the end of the day, you make the playoffs, you make the playoffs. He's not finished 7th every year. He's won that league. The team that finished top this year, Philadelphia Union, they won the Supporters' Shield. Very good side. Very good side. Shout out to Philadelphia, by the way. But like that's, I mean, even if you go and open up the MLS table, right? MLS table and look at it from this season. Once again, people look at, like, it's the same with McKenna. Everybody does this. Everybody goes, oh, 7th in the league, McKenna. Oh, he's 12th in the league with Ipswich. What are you expecting? Like, once again, where are all these managers that are winning trophies? They're not coming to Celtic. All these managers finishing first in the table. It's not happening. In the MLS, they did finish 7th in the Eastern Conference this year. Just for context, if they won another game, they would have, or if they got 4 more points, they would have finished in the top 4 probably. So, and I know they didn't, but aye. Philly Union fan like me, Aspreezy. I mean, I don't watch Philly Union, but if I had to pick a team, I would. I managed them in FM last year, and I loved it. And obviously, I'm a big Eagles guy, so yeah, they'd be my team. Even my team. KS9 asking questions about reservations to do with the shape and the tactic. Doesn't the 3-4-3 worry you, Ryan? Look at United when Amarim first came in. I think we were jumping in too early for him. Look, tactical change deserves every little bit of worry. It does. I get it. It's asking a lot of players to do, especially mid-season. And when you look at a team like Manchester United, who were asked to suddenly do it back in, when was it, Amarim came in, December or something? I can't remember exactly when he came in. They struggled with it. They really, really did. To be lazy about things, you could maybe cite the fact that Neil Lennon decided to change to a 3-at-the-back formation mid-season in 2019, and we played some of the best football we'd played in a long time, if you remember rightly. When, I mean, everybody was going on about prime Lenny ball when we switched to the 3 whatever we were playing. Everybody loved it. And it didn't work long term, and we ended up going back to a back four and whatever, cool. Then you remember it was Neil Lennon that was in charge. I think that in this country you have a much better chance of making it succeed earlier, but you need to be patient. You need to be. Of course, patience has limits. Like, it's not as if we can say, right, Wilfried Nancy gets 2 years to bring his tactics in and make them work at Celtic. No, but he'll understand that. In these interviews, he'll understand that. Celtic isn't a club you get 2 years to make it work. You just don't. He'll need to make it work, and he'll need to make it work very, very quickly. You know, he'll need to come in, he'll need to win games, he'll need to win trophies. There isn't an excuse at Celtic. So, but he wouldn't go into the interview not knowing these things. He's not an alien. To quote a famous man, Ange Postecoglou, one of my favourite Ange Postecoglou quotes, "I'm not an alien, mate." You know, he's from this planet. He knows who Celtic are. He knows the expectations of the football club. And he knows the successes the football club has seen over the past 25 years. He's not walking into the interview as an absolute diddy. So, he'll know that. And he'll know that he needs to get it right, and maybe he'll do things gradually to ensure he gets it right, because he doesn't want to be out of a job by the end of the season. So that's why I think that it's, once again, about giving it patience, but understanding that he'll know that he needs to give it patience as well. Let's keep going, shall we? I think on the top of KS9's point, and that he's brought in the chat, that is probably one of the biggest, and that's what, like, we're all presuming here that he's going to jump straight in with a 3-4-2-1, whatever he likes to play, 3-5, whatever. Like, I think we're all presuming that he's going to jump in head first and do that. He might not. He might take it. He doesn't have the squad to make it work. To 100%, you're spot on, KS9. Lenny had the players to make it work. You know, he had a great striker in Edouard, he had wing backs like Frimpong and Taylor, and he had players all through the squad in the right areas. Whereas Wilfried Nancy's walking into a team without right wingers, for goodness sake. He's walking into a team that is scathed by injuries. He's walking into a team that don't even have a clinical, proper... Listen, I know people are going to start shouting, Johnny Kenny! I like Kenny. Let's keep giving him chances. But he ain't like the finished article, right? Let's just be real for a minute. He's walking into a very shit squad right now. So we're all presuming that he's going to jump in and try it. He might not. He might give it some time before he decides to go, like, right, okay, I'm going for it. He might give it January. He might give it whatever. So, aye. Jake, $4.99, thank you, brother. Celtic is obviously a big job. Currently, the fans and board relationship is gone. It's toxic. We will never get in a big name, in my opinion. I agree. Who was here for the stream when Rodgers left? I had 4,000 plus people in the stream that night. And I told you, don't get your hopes up about a big appointment. Because it was never going to happen. Some people are proper deluded when it comes to what they expect at Celtic. We aren't going to get these big... We were never going to get Knutson. It was just never going to happen. I only started thinking it could happen over the past week when we kind of things started trickling. Oh, he's thinking about it. Apparently he's willing to do it. And I was like, oh, maybe there's a chance. But I never... If you got your hopes up about it and now you're hurt that it's not him, that's your own fault. That's your own fault. We were never going to get that type of appointment. We're so far detached from that reality right now. The football club is an absolute state. So, like, I'm not surprised that we're going down this very different route. It's almost like when Ange built the club back up again to allow a manager like of Rodgers' standard to come back. Will Nancy now be able to replicate that for the time he moves on? We get another big manager, another big name. Then you can maybe talk about a Knutson. But it's just such a difficult area of a point of time and a difficult area to tackle right now. When you find yourself in this place. And as Baldy Prick says, it's went from being the most attractive job you could get in 2023 to one that's in the gutter. 100%. No, I wouldn't go as far as gutter, because it's still Celtic, right? But it's certainly not the place it was in 2023. You're right, 100%. Thank you for the donation, by the way. I appreciate it, Jake. Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to stay on live till 7 o'clock, so we have about 8 more minutes. So keep your points coming in for the next 8 minutes or so. And I'll try and get to as many as possible. We've got a packed chat tonight, as you would expect. Also, please, if you haven't already, when you're done, 2 things for you to go and watch. Number 1, Quinny's video on the Celts Are Here channel. Go and give it a watch. Number 2, the podcast from earlier, the Celtic the Thunder. It's live on the channel. You can go and watch that. We had a big discussion about the realistic possibility of Nancy coming in, the managerial situation in general, and it's well worth a watch, if I say so myself, as the host of the podcast. Right, so many points, so many questions. I actually seen something I wanted to cover. It was Celtic God. Hi Ryan, I was the fella from Michelin who got you your TV interviews. What a European trip. Good to see you, brother. Thank you. My interviews, I've still not seen any of them back. I can't find the Danish TV networks, but I appreciate it. You work hard. You work hard. You work harder than me. Does Nancy know the toxic atmosphere he's coming into? First game he's hearing sack the board and not his name. You would imagine that he's done his research. I wonder how the board will brief him. We'll never know that, though. We'll never know that. At the end of the day, the manager's always going to have... Like, there's never a world where you're going to have a manager coming in who's also rebellious towards the board. So, like, he was always going to have a functioning and well-drilled relationship with the board from the get-go. And it would have been the same with any of the managers coming in, whether it was Nancy, Knutson, McKenna, Robbie Keane, whoever. They were always going to have a good relationship with the board because they are his employers. But I'm sure he'll know that there is a little bit of animosity and toxicity that exists right now. And hopefully he can understand why. I mean, Rodgers understood why, so these are smart people. Thomas saying, too many young fans expecting us to get someone like Pep appointed. We had Liam Brady and Lou McCarry in the past. Nancy has good philosophy. I wasn't there for the Liam Brady and Lou McCarry days, but yeah, you're not wrong. Thank you, Chuck, for watching the podcast. You can get back to it at 7 o'clock when I finish in the next 5 minutes or so. That's a good shout, Daniel. Stick Nancy in charge in FM. FM. I've not done a video like that in years. FM simulates. Could do that. That'd be a shout. I don't know how many people are interested in the FM simulates nowadays, but we can wait and see. We can maybe try it. It's an international break at the end of the day, but I'm sure I'll have plenty to talk. I've still got to do the Celtic Hunger Games for the year, which I'll hopefully get to next week. Stephen saying the fans will get right behind him. I'm not worried about that. The fans love it. Yeah, look, I think one thing I've spoke a lot in this stream about people who will just refuse to get behind them. I've spoke about the people that will act childish about it. But I think one thing more than anything is like that is such a minority. When we're in Celtic Park, that first year Celtic manager Wilfried Nancy, he'll get the reception, he'll get the support, and your not even just your match going fans, your stay at home fans, your fans that watch casually from home will get behind him, the vast majority, because you know it's the Celtic manager. So I 100% agree. I 100% agree. Buy the £5 membership. There's your cookie, right? Nah, well, there we go. I might put it on the 118 cover or something like that, just to lure people in. It's the possession-based thing that worries me, says Danny, which is a perfectly valid concern to have. We've just came out the back of a bit of turgid football with Brendan Rodgers that was possession-based. And once again, I'll point you in there, he's there in the chat right now. Quinny will tell you, it's not Brendan Rodgers' possession football. People hear the word possession and they get, oh, it's got to be like Brendan's last season. You know, like, it's not like that. I mean, Pep Guardiola plays possession-based football, doesn't he? It doesn't look like Rodgers' football. Maybe some aspects of it do. I mean, so many managers play possession-based. It's what you do with the possession that matters. People just don't get scared by the word possession. And as Celtic fans, you are kind of like, what? Here's one thing that always winds me up, right? People go, oh no, possession-based football. Look at Celtic's average possession in Scotland over the last 25, 30, 40, 50, bugger that, 130 years. Like, we are a possession-based team. And it's just what you do with the possession that matters. People just hear that and they get really, really scared. And that's fair. But trust me, it's not intended to be the same anyway. Oh, here we go. Stefan, who is from Columbus. Oh, love that. Columbus resident here. Nancy is an absolute gem. Amazing man manager. Amazing tactician. Thank you, Stefan. I appreciate it. All the way from Ohio. There you go. A good write up there from Stefan. My dad's best mate is actually moving back to Ohio, but I don't know whereabouts he's moving. I wonder if he's aware of Nancy. Because he lived in Ohio, then moved to Alabama, and now he's moving back to Ohio, I believe. I don't know. But aye, that's a nice wee message from you, Stefan. I appreciate it. Right, where are we? How many more minutes? 2 minutes to go. If you've got anything desperate to get in, you better move it. You better get it in now. Because if you don't get it in now, then, you know, you're missing your opportunity. Stuck a tenner on Celtic winning the Masters, says KS9. Can't believe we're looking like we're ending up with Nancy. Surely there's someone better out there. No, we're in a crap league, but surely if you give the Bruges manager top wages, he would have taken the job. Why would he? He's in the Champions League with Bruges. They also have a bit of money behind them. They've backed him, something that Celtic don't do to managers. So, no, I don't think there is a surely the Bruges manager would take the job. Some people value their job and what they're doing and they're feeling around that than wages. And realistically, Celtic aren't going to offer them like double their wages. We're Celtic. No Chelsea. You know? So, I don't think there was a surely about anybody, to be honest. Put it this way. As we wrap up the stream. Get behind the guy. Wilfried Nancy is looking likely to become the next Celtic manager, ladies and gentlemen. It is edging ever closer as things stand. Sky Sports have reported the talks are advanced, that Columbus have given the go-aheads, and everything is looking incredibly, incredibly likely. I am excited, ladies and gentlemen. I ain't going to lie about it. I am excited, and I'm looking forward to some freshness, some change, and something different at the top of Celtic Football Club. So, on that note, come on, Nancy. Do anybody remember the song Fancy by Iggy Azalea and Charlie XCX? Change Fancy to Nancy. There's your chant right there. That's it. That's the one. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate you tuning in tonight. Take care. Go and check out Quinny's video. Go listen to the podcast. And we'll be here as the news breaks whenever